begin. So the very first type of wealth creation vehicle that I want to speak about is investing into individual stocks. Okay, so what actually is this? Well, this is where you buy a piece of a company. Okay, and this is much like owning a piece of a pie or a piece of a cake. And the more valuable the company goes, the more valuable the cake is, the more valuable your piece become. And so really what the whole principle behind investing into an individual stock is you're gunning to buy a stock that will increase in value over time. So what are the pros and the cons of this? Well, the pros of investing into an individual stock is that you have the potential for high returns over the long term. And I'll give you an example. So let's say you invested into Facebook and you bought Facebook when it was first founded in the early 2000s. Well, obviously, the value of that stock will have drastically increased over the last 20 years, however long it's been since Facebook has been going. But there are many other examples. You can get incredibly good returns over the long term. And so what you're really doing when you're investing into a specific stock is you're gunning for that stock to increase in value. But what are the cons of investing and buying a piece of a company? Well, the problems that you can face is that you can have very high short-term volatility, because really, if I can spell volatility, there we go. You can have high short-term volatility. Why? Because you're investing into a business, and whether that business will perform well or it won't perform well is yet to be determined. It depends on who's running the business, what's going on, what market conditions take place. I remember one mistake that I made years ago when I first got into investing myself is I thought, okay, well, the future is going to be weed plants, right? Marijuana plants. And so I ended up buying a stock of marijuana plants thinking that it was going to skyrocket. Well, it just tanked. The business went bankrupt and I lost all the cash that I invested into it. Lesson learned. The truth is that you can experience very high short-term volatility, go up and it can go down. Now, another con that you need to be aware of if you're investing into individual stocks is you must be a student of the stock that you're buying into, right? So what you can't do is you can't just take advice from somebody that you've listened to. Is you need to understand what you're buying into, because fundamentally what you are, if you're buying a stock, is you're an investor in that company, right? If you're buying a stock, you're an investor in that company. As an investor, it's important, it's vital that you fully understand the mechanisms of the company that you're buying into, right? Because you're putting your money into it with the hope and the faith that that company will increase in value over time, so the money you've invested will also increase over time. So you have to be a student of the stock that you're buying into, of the company that you're looking at. And just to highlight another con, well, things can happen. For example, let's say that you're investing in Boeing, very stable company, well, then all of a sudden one of their planes crash. Well, that can crash. So that's an example of short-term volatility that you can experience. So how do you compartmentalize what buying a stock is? Well, as far as an investor's perspective, it's kind of like climbing a mountain. There's going to be highs, there's going to be lows. But if you stick at it over the long term, if you do your proper diligence, well, you should end up higher than you started. Now, what are the average returns of buying a stock, right? Or stocks in a specific company? Well, it's actually impossible for me to give you average returns. Why? Because there's an endless amount of different stocks that you could buy. Any company that is public, you can purchase. And so it's impossible for us to say what the average returns are. Why? Because it depends on which stock you buy. It can drastically vary. It can drastically vary a huge amount. So we are going to speak about average returns in some investment strategies, but this is one of those where we can't give you an average return because it entirely depends. Investing into a very new company that's just hit the market is very different to investing into a company like Apple or Google that is stable, that's been going for a very long time. So it's very difficult to predict what your average returns will be if you're investing into a specific company. Okay, so that's your first method.